They told you motion was progress, that if you moved faster, worked harder, and sprinted earlier, you'd arrive at the front of the line. But the front of the line was a corridor built by someone else, and the doors open inward, only for those who don't push. You notice it first in rooms that hum with nerves. People rehearse answers under their breath. They fill silences with words as if they're bailing water from a sinking boat. They move. They overshare. They volunteer price points and fears. They confuse action with advantage, speed with superiority, noise with meaning. You begin to study the opposite, the quiet, the pause that stretches just long enough to make other people negotiate with themselves. You see how stillness is not passivity. It is an instrument. It is gravity in a room of satellites, pulling orbits without chasing them. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Stillness is expensive. Only those with options can afford it. But what if options are built from restraint long before the moment of choice? You start small. You refuse the first offer every time. You don't explain your reasons. You let the echo of your no do the work that paragraphs cannot. You discover a law of human motion. Urgency seeks permission. The moment you decline to dance, the music changes key. Here's the part no one dares to admit. People crave resolution more than they crave fairness. In every meeting, there's a point where the hunger to close becomes a confession. You watch as impatience reveals needs, the way heat reveals fingerprints. Someone blurts a number. Someone promises access. Someone breaks their own position in the search for relief. You remain unmoved, attentive, yes, but still. Your stillness is not a wall. It's a mirror. They project, and you read. You start to see this everywhere. In markets that panic, then overcorrect. In timelines that compress, then sacrifice. Equality for closure. In friendships that rush to define themselves. In ambitions that run loud to avoid looking inward. You recognize the anxious choreography that governs the masses, and you step out of its radius. You watch how calm becomes a kind of toll. Everyone else pays it for you, in discounts of time, in margins of attention, in the subtle surrender of framing. And in the hush that follows, a door unlocks inside your mind. But what if stillness isn't reaction at all? What if it's placement? A lion doesn't move for hours. The herd repositions around its silence. When the moment comes, the distance is already closed. The world thinks the leap is the victory. The victory was the quiet hour no one filmed. It was the patience that turned hunger into inevitability. The powerful don't rush toward the center. They let the center drift toward them. This is not mysticism. It's mechanics. Motion is costly. It leaks information. And worse, it trains your opponents to read you. When you stay still, the room gets loud with confessions. The market reveals its appetite. The rival shows you where he bleeds. The ally shows you where she bends. You save your words for the binding parts, the clauses that outlive applause. And the world fidgets into your hands. You begin to practice a new discipline, the art of letting others arrive first. You hold your point. You let the environment solve for you. When you finally speak, you do not argue, you summarize. You do not persuade, you agree to what was already conceded by the noise of others. The stillness was the stage. The rest was choreography already paid for by their urgency. And from that quiet vantage, a darker truth takes shape. Speed is a story told by sellers of speed. The real luxury is time. And time is owned not by those who move through it the fastest, but by those who make others spend it. When the room spends its time around your silence, you have already collected your fee. You do not need to dominate, you only need to remain. And in remaining, you become unreadable, untouchable, and eventually, inevitable. You were taught that price is found, like a coin on the ground. That value is intrinsic. buried inside objects like a secret jewel, waiting for discovery. But the rich learned a different catechism. Value is staged. Price is rehearsed. Scarcity is a costume tailored in advance. And in that awareness, markets become theaters. Consider the myth of uniqueness. A watch becomes expensive not because of metal, but because of story, provenance, a limited run, a patron with a name that makes rooms exhale. Consider art, or wine, or land. Each becomes a vessel for narrative. And narrative is minted by rituals of selection, invitations that exclude, timing that orchestrates anticipation, language that baptizes the ordinary with the sacred. People aren't buying the object. They're buying the permission to see themselves in its aura. And in that silence, the truth whispers. But what if the aura is manufactured? What if supply is not what exists, but what is allowed to exist? The price you accept is the boundary of what you can imagine to be fair. Whoever builds that boundary builds your consent. The masses call it sentiment. The scriptwriters call it positioning. The few who benefit call it market discovery, as if they stumbled into the harvest they spent months planting. Here's the part no one dares to admit. Even losses can be polished into the illusion of control. Downturns become corrections, as if the market is a moral parent temporarily displeased. Crashes become opportunities, the word choice that anesthetizes pain long enough for the insiders to rebalance. Euphemism is a hedge against panic. Vocabulary is a vault. If you control the words, you rent the weather. You start to observe that the real asset is not the product, but the moment around it. A drop, a reveal, a quiet leak to the right mouth. Demand is warmed with whispers, cooled with doubts, coaxed into the shape that leaves the margin thick. Even charity can be a market rehearsal, a test of appetite draped in virtue. When the story lands, the numbers follow, obedient as soldiers after the drum, and in that hush, you hear the mint stamping. The wealthy do not chase value, they design it. They orchestrate vantage points so that by the time the public arrives, the view is curated. Angles hide debt, light flatters risk, and the frame edits out the inconvenient bones. The crowd believes it has discovered a treasure. In truth, it has been walked through a museum of intentions, guided by docents paid in smiles and future favors. But what if you interrupted the tour? What if you asked who is limiting supply and who is limiting language? Who benefits from the apocalypse that always conveniently arrives with premium subscriptions? You would find the same hands at the levers, those who own distribution and narrative, the two engines of price. You would find that value is a covenant between story and scarcity, underwritten by attention. And when attention is the currency, belief becomes the central bank. Here's the dark symmetry. Faith is fungible. If you can make a crowd believe in your scarcity, you can price their longing. If you can make them believe in your surplus of meaning, you can price their loneliness. And the proof that the system is working is not outrage, it's habit. People keep returning to the mint. They line up for the next story that might make them feel like more than a replaceable noun. And in the pause between stories, the structure reveals itself. You stop asking whether something is inherently valuable. You start asking, whose narrative scaffolds this? Where are the supply valves? Who is underwriting the risk with the faith of strangers? Value does not float in a neutral sky. It is suspended by wires. If you cannot see the wires, it is because the lighting is excellent and the director knows your angles. You are not audience. You are harvest. And the harvest is belief, which will always be in season. The ancients mapped stars to predict kings. Today, kings map your weaknesses to predict revenue. The constellations are different, but the ceremony is the same. The sky has become a database. Your signals, sleeplessness, envy, FOMO, the ache of unpaid bills, are constellations that tell a story. The story ends with a cheat, check-out button. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The powerful do not need your name. They need your triggers. They need the vector that moves you into a lane where your consent is ambient. You will call it recommendations. They will call it yield. The loop tightens with every scroll. The algorithm does not seduce, it measures. And measurement, repeated at scale, becomes destiny. Not because you lack will, but because you are tired. Fatigue erodes sovereignty. Tired minds trade autonomy for convenience and call it modernity. But what if convenience is a cage designed to feel ergonomic? You fit inside. You like it. It keeps your hands free while gently adjusting your trajectory. The subscription is not for music or movies or groceries. The subscription is for a life that doesn't require you to make difficult choices. In that rented ease, your appetite becomes programmable. And once programmable, it becomes collateral. Here's the part no one dares to admit. The market does not want you dead. It wants you divided. Divided attention spends more. Divided identity obeys faster. Divided time forgets to resist. So it splits you with tiny knives, notifications, spurts of outrage, infinite scrolls of almost meaning. You think you're browsing. You are being mined. You think you're choosing. You are being sorted. And in the hush between pings, you recognize a pattern. Every fear has a vendor. Every vanity has a portal. Every loneliness has a subscription tier. The human weakness index is not published, but it is priced. Your envy drives luxury. Your fear drives insurance. Your boredom drives platform time. Your tribalism drives news cycles. Your shame drives cosmetic fixes. Your debt drives labor obedience. When aggregated, these become predictable flows, the cash rivers that irrigate empires. But what if you refuse to feed the index? What if you named your triggers and cut their supply lines? What if you learned the cold discipline of delaying all reactions by an hour, a day, a week? The algorithm cannot monetize a delay. It cannot predict. A pause is a firewall. Silence is not just power in a room. It is quarantine in a world of engineered contagions. Here's a colder truth. The elite do not cure weakness. They circulate it. They hedge it with products, securitize it into forecasts, ladder it across seasons. When a population stays anxious, the offering calendar remains full. When attention remains fractured, persuasion becomes infrastructure, and the language that could free you is carefully starved. Words like enough, words like no, words like later. And from that scarcity of language, a surplus of compliance blooms. You begin to audit your inputs like a ledger. What passes the gate earns the right to shape your mind. You unfollow the outrage vendors. You replace noise with long form, 1 hour with a hard book instead of 100 tiny bites. You sleep more. You delete apps that monetize your cortisol. Your boredom grows at first. It will feel like a withdrawal. But on the other side of that withdrawal stands a new sovereign, attention you can deploy rather than attention rented by others. And in the wide quiet that follow, as the index loses its grip, the algorithm will adapt, yes. It will try new doors, it will knock with more flattering knuckles, but you will have rearranged your house. The furniture of your mind will not be where it expects. You will become costly to manipulate because you take longer to move, longer to anger, longer to need. And the moment you become slow to move, you become expensive to control. Expensive to control is the first true definition of freedom. Strategy is often romanticized as razor-edged moves, brilliant gambits, cinematic checkmates. In practice, it is plumbing. It is where the water must pass. Own the pipes, and the arguments upstream dissolve into invoice schedules. The powerful don't need to win debates if they can invoice outcomes. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Consider choke points, standards, distribution channels, payment rails, regulators, gatekeepers in nice suits who smile while stamping your future. Whoever controls the choke point does not need to shout. They price access. They don't slay competitors, they slow them. The difference is not dramatic, which is why it works. Drama alerts the crowd. Friction multiplies quietly. But what if the true play is vertical rather than horizontal? While others expand offerings, you acquire the road their offerings must travel. You sponsor the committee that sets the standard their products must obey. You take a small seat on a board that chooses the map. You negotiate a right of first refusal, innocuous as a folded napkin, and suddenly the entire neighborhood must ask to pass your porch. Here's the part no one dares to admit. The most enduring power is contractual, not charismatic. Charisma fills a room. A covenant fills a decade. Public victories are leisure activities for people who already installed the valves. If your opponent must pay your toll to fight you, you can applaud their courage while counting their coins. And in that hush of paperwork, architecture reveals itself. The strategy travels with you into daily life. You stop trying to win every argument. You start editing defaults. You place a calendar link instead of asking when someone is free. You set your own hours and make others propose new ones. Small gates, subtle valves, friction that favors you. This is not cruelty. It is clarity about the physics of human behavior. People flow along the path of least resistance. Become the path. But what if you combined this with stillness? You would have posture and terrain. You would appear flexible while remaining unmoved. Your agreements would be thin on theater and thick on enforcement. Your concessions would be noisy and symbolic. Your keeps would be quiet and structural. You would let others enjoy the surface while you secure the seabed. Here's a darker symmetry. Control can look like kindness. We'll handle it for you. We've standardized the process. We've made it easier. Ease is a trophy that hides the toll. When a population worships convenience, it will vote for its wardens. It will call the wardens innovators, then wonder why the gates keep multiplying. The answer? Gates are profitable until what is profitable repeats. And once repeated, it becomes normal. You begin to sense where to stand, not in the spotlight, but in the corridor that the spotlight must pass to reach the stage. You start to ask in every situation, where is the valve? Where is the default? Where is the small clause inside the larger clause that bends outcomes without appearing to dictate them? You become suspicious of options. You prefer alternatives. Options are what you're offered. Alternatives are what you build. And in that cultivated suspicion, you graduate from persuasion to design. The invisible handshake is simple. It says, I don't need you to agree with me. I need you to agree with reality. Then you show that reality is shaped, not found. The pipes you laid, the standards you nudged, the calendars you set, the interfaces you simplified until they kept your interests alive even when your name left the room. The best strategies survive your absence. They keep tolling while you sleep. And because they toll quietly, they will be praised as progress. Awareness is expensive, not in money, but in warmth. The moment you see the strings, the puppet show loses a kind of charm you didn't realize you loved. The songs of the crowd start sounding tinny. Invitations arrive with lace woven out of obligation. You feel the weight of your no, like a coin that can buy distance, but not always companionship. And in that silence, the truth whispers. You will be called cold, but frost preserves. It keeps food through winter and keeps commitments through storms. You build a private policy. No decisions made from shame, scarcity, or spectacle. You replace performative productivity with deliberate placement. You exchange constant access for consistent boundaries. You trade applause for leverage, and you find that leverage amortizes loneliness over time into a quieter, more durable kind of respect. But what if the cost never disappears? What if the cost is the point? Systems are designed to make rebellion feel emotionally overpriced. You are meant to think that saying no is antisocial rather than pro-sovereignty. So the world tax is levied through guilt, through invitations phrased as moral tests, through be a team player, spoken with a smile that carries a ledger underneath. Here's the part no one dares to admit. You will lose a few myths you enjoyed. The myth that hard work alone triumphs. The myth that merit floats to the top like cream. The myth that the people selling inspiration are also selling truth. You will understand that some inspiration is anesthesia dressed in confidence. You will miss the high, but you will not miss the hangover. And in the long hush that follows, something sturdier arrives. You begin to assemble a small republic, fewer people, denser trust, agreements that outlast moods, time that is yours, not because no one can interrupt it, but because interruptions must pay a premium. You invest in sleep, in reading, in silence that returns interest. Your attention becomes a treasury rather than a fountain. You stop correcting strangers. You stop auditioning for rooms that price you in applause. You govern yourself, and governance attracts its own weather. But what if power, at its final form, is not control over others, but control over self? The game reveals its last twist. When you are not desperate, the market cannot bait you. When you are not lonely, the platform cannot trap you. When you are not hurried, the negotiator cannot herd you. When you are not ashamed, the priest cannot sell you indulgences. You have not defeated the system. You have become costly to it. Here's the darker tenderness. You will feel lighter and heavier at once. Lighter because manipulation loses its grip. Heavier because responsibility replaces comfort. The air changes. The noise recedes. You hear your thoughts again, and some of them aren't kind. You realize that silence is not empty. It is full of your own inventory. You start balancing it line by line. And at the end of that audit, you find a clear ledger. You do not seek to be feared. You seek to be unreadable. You do not intend harm. You intend precision. You will forgive quickly and grant access slowly. You will love few and protect many. You will become the person you once sought in leaders, unbothered by spectacle, fluent in constraints, generous in structure, and disciplined in saying nothing, when saying nothing is the most expensive answer in the room, and when the world asks what changed, you'll smile. You stopped dancing to prove you could. You started choosing the music. You've walked the corridors most never enter. You've seen how stillness pulls, how stories print margins, how weakness is indexed, and how gates are built long before the city celebrates the bridge. If you felt something loosen inside you, if the appetite for hurry dimmed and the appetite for clarity grew, then you already know this path is narrow and it is worth it. If you've come this far, you see the pattern. You know that power is not a shout. It's a valve, not a sprint, a posture. You know that freedom begins where manipulation becomes too expensive to maintain. That sovereignty starts the moment you decline to be rushed. Stay with us, not for noise but for signal, not for content but for consciousness. What we build here is a circle of awareness, quiet, precise, and immovable, where leverage replaces frenzy and design replaces permission. Subscribe if you're ready to keep walking. Consider it your small invisible handshake with the future, choosing clarity over spectacle, structure over seduction, and the kind of silence that moves everything.